Quarter 4, Module 6, Computing Test Statistic on Population Mean. There are two specific test statistics used for hypothesis testing concerning means. Concerning means, it's either Z-test or T-test. Again, if the sample size is large, where n is greater than 30, and the population standard deviation or sigma is known, we use Z-test. In finding the Z value, use the formula below. Kani. Z is equivalent to x bar minus mu over sigma over square root of n, where your x bar is your sample mean, mu is your population mean, n is your sample size, and your sigma is your population standard deviation. Actually, humana nato ni og solve. Humana nato ni discuss. Review na lang ni. On the other hand, the T-test is used when n is less than 30 and the population size is normal and nearly normal and the standard deviation is unknown. So meaning, the sample standard deviation is unknown. Or basically, dili ni sample standard deviation good. Ang population standard deviation is unknown, pero si sample standard deviation known. So, mag-t-test ta. So, for the t value, we use this formula. Similar lang kaayo sa z-test. Ang difference lang ka ng s diha. Instead nga sigma, s na. X bar is the sample mean yapon. Mu is the population mean. N is the sample size. And S is the sample standard deviation. And take note that the degree of freedom is n-1. So, let's discuss some examples. So, compute for the Z value given the following information. Use one-tailed test and sigma is 0.05 level of significance. So, based sa given, X bar na to is, or the sample mean na to is 70, population mean is 71.5, population standard deviation is 8, and N is 100. So based from the given, known ang ato ang population standard deviation and ang ato ang N is greater than 30. So therefore, mag Z-test ta. And Z-test nga one-tailed. One-tailed test. Sige. So, ang first button to determine, actually, ang goal lang na to is to determine the test statistic. So, ang first button is use the formula in Z-test. Again, ganong Z-test because sigma is given and then N is greater than 30. Anong formula? Then after, you simply substitute kani o kana. Baliktad, na baliktad siya. X bar minus mu. So baliktad ang yang nakuan. Dapat dire 70 minus 71.5 over, tama na ning 8 over square root of 100. So, yun. And then, simplify na lang na to. So, this must be negative. So, negative siya because mas dako ato ang population mean. So, ang final answer is negative. So, therefore, this is negative 1.7 1.875. So, nga na dapat. So, correct na lang nato nino. So, nabaliktad. It's either nabaliktad ning pagka-substitute or nabaliktad lang ning given. Wala ta kabalo asa sa kuan. So, yun. That's how to solve for the statistic. Another example, we have here a problem. that states, in the past, the average length of an outgoing call from a business office has been 140 seconds. A manager wishes to check whether that average has decreased after the introduction of policy changes. A sample of 150 telephone calls produce a mean of 135 seconds with a standard deviation of 30 seconds. Perform the relevant test at 1% level of significance. So, dili na to humanon, ang goal lang nato dire is mag-compute lang og test statistic. So sige, first let's determine unsay mga given. So kaning 140 seconds average length man daw na in the past. So meaning this is our mu. Average tapos sa past man na nimo nga kuan nga record. So that is our population mean. A manager wishes to check kung nag-decrease ba daw. So i-check niya kung nag-decrease. So nag-decrease less than ta. So therefore one-tailed test ta. A sample of 150. So this is greater than 30 atong sample size. And produce 135 seconds. So meaning this is our sample mean. Kaysa kaning 135 seconds sa sample naman nato na nakuha. And with a standard deviation of 30 seconds. So kani S ni siya. Ngano man? Because this value came from a sample. So dili siya sigma S. So natay 1% or your alpha is 0.01. Na ang mga given. So based from that, let's determine unsa nga test. So check na to na ba si sigma or population standard deviation. So population standard deviation is not known. So ang sigma nato is unknown. While our sample size n is greater than 30. So unsaon na siya? Kung greater than 30, again, basta greater than 30, automatic z-test ni. Maski pag population standard deviation is not known, but by virtue of the central limit theorem, we can replace sigma with our sample standard deviation. So, z-test gihapon ta. Again, greater than 30 man siya, maski pag wala si population standard deviation, we can use the central limit theorem and replace your population standard deviation with your sample standard deviation. So, moto z-test gyapon ang gigamit. Tapos, substitution, 135 is our sample, nara? And 140 is our population mean. 30 atong gigamit na ara. So, in replacement sa atong sigma, atong gigamit is ang S. Ang sample standard deviation. Again, by virtue of the central limit theorem. Tapos, sample size nato is 150. Simplifying, this is negative 5. Kani, negative 5 man na. Tapos, square root an is kana. Actually, you can just use the calculator. Then, after you simplify, preferably, do not round off anything until sa last na ta para mas exact atong kuan. Sa final answer na ta mag-round off. So, sige daw, unsaon na siya pag-calculate. We have here 135 minus 140. 135 minus 140 equals negative 5. Pwede ra ka diretso, di ba kani, denominator man eh, pwede ra ka diretso i-times sa iyang reciprocal. Times times square root of 150 over 30 sa calculator. So, pwede ra ka equals no. 135 minus 140 equals negative 5 times square root ni 150 tsaka ka mag-divide kay 30. And that is negative 0.41. Yun. Negative. Rounding off, pwede ra 3 decimal places. Actually, sa Z na to, 3 decimal places na lang. So, sige, kwanta. Pagkasinabot na lang to sa 3 decimal places. So, negative 2.041. So, that's our Z value. Okay? That is an example na nagamit siya og central limit theorem. Wala tay sample standard deviation, population standard deviation atong gigamit si population standard sample standard again. Wala tay population standard deviation, but since ang atong sample size is greater than 30, then we can use our Z-test gyapon, pero ang gamiton nimo nga standard deviation is ang sample standard deviation na. Lastly, last example ta. The government claims that the monthly expenses of a Filipino family with 4 members is 10,000 pesos. A sample of 26 families expenses has a mean of 10,900 pesos and a standard deviation of 1,250 pesos. Is there enough evidence to reject the government's claims at alpha equals to 0.01? So, dili nato ni answeran diretso. Ang atong goal lang sa is to determine the test statistic. So, again, to determine that one, let's identify the given. Kaning 100,000, at 10,000 I mean is monthly expenses of the Filipino with 4 members. Ang government claim na. So, on the record, kumbaga, sa record nila, so mo niya ito ang mu. Then, a sample of n which is less than 30 man siya. Naaday mean na 109. So, sample mean, ano siya? X bar. And a standard deviation of 100. So, since naa siya sa statement na sample, so this is our S. Then, our alpha is this one. So, let's determine unsa nga test. Based sa given, ang sample size is less than 30 and we don't have sigma or our population standard deviation. Ang naalang is ang sample standard deviation. So, since less than 30 siya, tapos walay sample standard deviation, then, wala tayo population standard deviation, we need the t-test. So, T statistic atong isolve. So, similar formula but this time S atong gigamit. Next, substitute na lang. So, ang X bar na to, nara, 10,900. Ang mu na to is 10,000. And 12,500 atong standard, 1,250. Ato ang standard deviation, sample standard deviation, and sample size na to is 26. So again, same. Sa pagkuan solve, you have to type 10,900 minus 10,000 equals sa kauna. Tapos, times ka sa square root sa imong sample size, 26. Bago ka mag-divide sa imuhang 12,050 nga standard deviation. And that is 3.671. 3 decimal places. Positive siya. So, positive 3.671. Unang test statistic ninyo. So, that's how to solve for test statistic na using t-test. So, sa first, z-test. Sa second, z-test. Sa first example, z-test. kay tungod greater than 30 tapos naa si sigma. Sa second, z-test gyapon kay tungod greater than 30 siya, masipag walay sigma. And last is t-test na siya because walay sigma tapos less than 30 pud siya. So nakahatag ko og mga examples sa kada situation. So that's all for quarter 4 module 6 computing. That's how to compute test statistic on a population mean. Thank you and see you next session.